of our rehab team to answer their questions and check in to see what they're doing. So they've actually just started rehab rotation. So they actually have a patient currently out right now and are starting treatment on that patient. So you'll be able to see what kind of treatment we do for our patients, and you'll also be able to get any of your questions answered. So if you have any questions about our Sea Turtle Hospital, please type them in the comments below as we go. I have some questions I'll be asking our team, but if you come up with anything, let me know. Also, let me know where you're tuning in from. We always love seeing where people are watching this live from. It's really interesting to see all the places in the country and the world that people are tuning in. So I'm about to go into the clinic. Again, if you have any questions, start typing them in the comments below. I'm about to introduce you to two of our members of our rehab team. They're right inside starting treatment on a patient. So let's go into the clinic. So this is our clinic. Here we have Chris and Jacob. So they're two members of our rehab team. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Chris. I'm the rehabilitation specialist here at Sea Turtle Link.
I'm Jacob. I'm the clerk's assistant at Sea Turtle Link and also part-time. I help out with rehab when needed.
Excellent. And who do we have here today, guys?
So today, the patient we're working on is Buddy. So Buddy is an Atlantic green sea turtle, and we found him at the very end of November last year. He was stuck in the rocks down at the jetties on Boca Chica Beach. So the jetties are a popular fishing spot here on the island and both down on Boca. But what happens with the turtles sometimes is if the waves get really choppy, they can get pushed up into those rocks and they'll actually get stuck. And so when that happens, they'll usually get some pretty bad wounds on both the top part of their shell, the carapace, as well as their plastron, the bottom part. So what we're doing today is I'm going to debride the wound a little bit. So for humans, for the most part, your mom always tells you, hey, don't pick your scabs. Well, with sea turtles, we do want to clean those wounds. They don't heal the same way that humans do. So what I'm going to do is just kind of clean the wound up a little bit. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and use our cold laser therapy machine to try and promote that wound healings. So Buddy's been here, like I said, since the end of November. And actually, you can see this is his last wound that we're still working on. Looks really great. It's almost there, probably in a couple weeks. He'll be good to go back out on release. And then on the computer, I actually had pulled up one of the very first photos we took of Buddy. And so you can kind of see just how much progression that wound has healed. So, what I'm using right here is just a little bit of gauze that's soaked in water as well as Chlorohex. So that's our disinfectant. And so I'll just kind of get in there and clean the wound a little bit. And as you can see, turtles are just like humans. They don't like going into the doctors, but it's a very crucial part to make sure that we get them back as healthy as possible. And then after that, I'll put on the protective eyewear, and I'll head on over to the cold laser machine. So this machine works on a cellular level. And so basically what's happening is when I turn it on, it's shooting infrared light at the cellular level, and that's what's going to promote that wound healing. So it doesn't harm the turtle in any way. They don't feel anything. It's basically just red light being shot down into the wound. And then once I finish up using the laser, I'm going to put on a little bit of topical ointment. So what we're using right now is what's called Buck Mountain Wound Balm. And basically what it is it's a mixture of yarrow, echinacea, and burdock. And so this is also just going to help with the wound healing process. So all of our turtles, depending on the different reasons that they come in, every turtle in the hospital will be pulled at least once a week. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure we're getting updated weight and photos on each of our patients. And we want to make sure that if they have wounds like this, we want to track how the wounds are healing, as well as we want to make sure that they're gaining a good amount of weight while they're here in the hospital. We do like to make sure that they have a lot of muscle and a little bit of fat by the time we release them back into the wild. So that's all for Buddy today. So Jacob, if you want to put him back, he is good to go.
All right, thank you so much, Chris. So we have some questions coming in. Emma's asking how many patients are currently at the hospital.
So currently we have 8 patients at the hospital. all of which are Atlantic green sea turtles, just like Buddy. And most of them are kind of in that same age range and weight range that he is right now. So Buddy we just got his weight today. He's 8.8 pounds. So we can only guess how old the turtles are based on their weight and size. So my guess is Buddy's probably anywhere from about 2 to 4 years old. So if Buddy gets fully grown, he's only 8 pounds right now. If he gets to his fully grown adult size, he can actually weigh up to 500 pounds. But we started the morning with 11 patients in the hospital, but we had a private release this morning. We had 3 Kemp's Ridley patients that we were able to release out about 10 miles offshore. So we have 2 different release sites for our sea turtles. So if we ever have Kemp's Ridleys or if we have Hawksbill sea turtles, we will take them offshore. And so we'll go about 10 miles out and to the man-made reef that's out there, because that's better foraging grounds for those 2 species. With the Atlantic greens, what we'll usually do is we'll actually take them out into the bay. And so the reason we'll take them out into the bay is that that's one of the best juvenile foraging grounds for the Atlantic green sea turtles. They like to snack on the seagrass that sits at the bottom of the bay. So that's why we have the 2 different release sites. So we started out with 11 this morning. We were able to release 3, so now we're back down to 8 sea turtles.
So someone's asking how Comet is. Comet is actually one of the Kemp's Ridley patients that got released this morning. So he was one of the 3 that got released. Now, Chris, can you actually walk us through what a typical day looks like for you here at Sea Turtle Inc.?
Yeah, so the first thing that we'll do in the morning when we get here is we will feed the hospital patients first. And so feeding the hospital patients is one of the more important jobs that we do. We want to make sure that every sea turtle in the hospital is eating because that's also going to help them in terms of if they're healing. So it's a great way to check and see how is the sea turtle doing. If they're eating well, it's usually a good sign. So the first thing we'll do is we'll put the sea turtles get their own vitamins, and we'll put them in the piece of food, and then we'll feed them, and then we keep an eye on everyone and see who's eating. A lot of the times we have a lot of turtles, so we usually have to keep a couple turtles in the same tank together, and we want to make sure that one turtle isn't bullying the other one too much or being a little too food aggressive. So once we finish that up, usually as a rehab group, we'll work on water quality. So we'll check everything from temperature to pH. We're checking the chlorine levels. Water quality is a huge part of rehab and husbandry. We want to make sure that the turtles have the best water quality possible. So we're constantly checking that every day, as well as then after that we'll head over and we'll feed the resident side. So that includes feeding our 5 resident sea turtles as well as all of the fish that we have over at the education building. So the first part of the morning is mostly doing the feeding, checking on the water quality, and then we'll actually vacuum the tanks on the hospital side, so that way when a turtle eats, the turtle's eventually going to poop. So we want to make sure and vacuum that out, keep the water as clear as possible. And then after that, we get into food prep. So we always got to make sure we've got diets for the next day. So we'll usually sit in here, we'll usually do rehab right here, food prep right here. And so all the sea turtles in their morning feeding, they get a mixture of shrimp, mackerel, and squid. So that's their big protein. When we have turtles here in the hospital, we want to make sure that we're kind of beefing them up a little bit. We want to make sure they're as healthy as possible when we return them back out to the wild. Just in case it takes them a little while to find food out in the wild, we want to give them a little bit of a head start. So after food prep's done, that's usually when we'll go out, we'll take a lunch break, and then after lunch break we'll come back in, and in the afternoon, that's when we start to do the rehab. So our licensed vet tech, Nina Navi, she makes the schedule every week to organize which turtles are due for which day based on the different treatments or the different medications that each turtle is getting. So typically rehab will take up most of the afternoon, and then some of the other things that we'll do on a day-to-day basis, if we end up getting a call about a turtle that needs to be rescued, that's something that can come at any time of the day. So that's part of the rehab duties, is we got to make sure and go out and rescue some of the turtles. And yeah, That's a typical day.
So I have a couple questions coming in. Someone wants to know what kind of vitamins do they get in their food?
So they get, it's through a brand called Missouri. So they have specific sea turtle vitamins that are made specifically for them. So here's guys a little preview. And each turtle's diet is laid out based off of the turtle's weight. So depending on the body condition of the turtle, that will determine what size diet. So if we have a turtle who is clearly very skinny and we want to put some weight on, then we'll increase that percent diet. So the same goes for the vitamins. Each vitamin is based off of the turtle's size. And then the other thing we'll give them is we'll give the turtles calcium supplements every other day. So
all right.
Those are the vitamins that we'll give.
Well, very interesting. Another question we have is, but they're basically asking how we source our salt water. Do we make our own salt water or do we source it?
So we have a natural lagoon that comes in from the bay, and we have an intake system where that's also part of our daily routine. Is we have 2 silos here on our hospital side where we intake water overnight, and that water hyperchlorinates, so we make sure and kill any of the bad bacteria or any algae, anything like that. And so after we hyperchlorinate it in the morning, what we do is we'll use sodium thiosulfate, and that'll neutralize the chlorine. And then after that, we transfer it over to another silo, and then we're able to fill the tanks with that fresh, clean salt water. So we are intaking water every day. And so, yeah, that's kind of the system.
Awesome. And can you name all the hospitalized sea turtles we have right now? So we have 8 patients, right? Can you name all of them for them?
Yeah, so we've got, gotta go tank by tank. So we've got Buddy, Daybreak, El Tigre, Luna, Milo, Monday Blues, Rue, and Serectus.
All right, perfect. We put them on the spot there, but he got them all. If you guys have any more questions, please type them into the comments below. We have a few minutes left. If you want to walk out there, we can go by one of the tanks. And if you guys have any more questions, you can type them into the comments below. But I figured you'd want to see some of our patients, so I'm going to go to one of our tanks where they actually just put Buddy back, which is the sea turtle that they were just working on in the clinic. So in here we have 3 of our patients, and here is El Tigre, and that's Buddy, the patient that they were just working on. So you can see they're very curious creatures. These guys are probably waiting for their afternoon snack. They get some veggies in the afternoon. And there you have Serectus kind of swimming around there. All right, well, if you don't have any questions right now, you can actually just type them into the comments below, or if you're watching this after we're live, type them into the comments below. I always go in a couple hours later and try to answer all the questions that I can. Thank you so much for tuning into this Facebook Live, and thank you to our rehab staff for checking in and answering all the questions. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely day.